A weekly discussion about all things guitar building and some random tangents as well, featuring members of the Guitar Builders Collective from all around the world. The Guitar Builders Collective is a like-minded group of individuals that have come together to share their experiences, knowledge and inspiration for guitar building. Each week you can join us in the live YouTube chat or catch up at a later point. It's also available as audio where you'll miss out on seeing our lovely faces and some of the visuals we share along the way. You can also find the Guitar Builders Collective via our forum, over on Instagram where we share images of members' builds. We've got a thriving Facebook group, and we do hope that no matter what your experience and knowledge is, you'll become a welcome member of this community too. Great. Hello, people.
Good evening.
Oh, there we go. It's going live. Hey, Mr. Babinga. I'm always going to call you that. I've noticed recently I've had to send people private messages asking them to tell me their actual names because I've only ever referred to them by their handles on Twitter or Instagram. Not Twitter. I don't use Twitter anymore. On Instagram or YouTube. I'm trying to remember everyone, but sometimes people have the coolest handles, so it's better to call them by that.
That reminds me. Sorry. Totally off.
Oh, go off. That's brilliant. I thought you were about to go off, so I went for a sip of water, but no.
Well, yeah. Everybody at jiu-jitsu winds up with a nickname, and there are people I've been rolling with for 4 years, and I don't know their real name.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a great comment here from Ty. So people that are listening miss out on the beard game that's happening, which we'll keep secret, but it's in the live chat with Ty from Shop the Fox. And I see, Mark, you've got one of the T-shirts.
I love this shirt. It's so comfortable. It fits me so well. It's soft and it looks cool. I've been wearing it all the time. Yeah, it's great.
Bit of advertising. It hasn't printed it too high, has it? It's really hard to tell when
I cut it. Like I went punk rock on this.
Oh, that's what's happened. Nice.
Yeah.
I need to get one.
Is that the one you still have to sort out for overseas suppliers, Daniel? That's the shirt you're talking about?
Yes. Unfortunately, on my list of things to do, a few things like that are low priority. I feel still a bit behind from COVID, but as I said, we're doing it today on Wednesday instead of Thursday because I'm off for a week. So next week's going to be on Friday because I'm away Thursday to Thursday. And then I'm sure I'm going to come back totally refreshed and just bulldoze everything and get everything caught up for everyone. Hey, Simon's there as well, also enjoying the shirt. Thanks, Simon. I got your email. I will send you all the info later. Simon's with us next Friday, awesome. Which is going to be brilliant. Let me, while we're here, while I just mentioned that, I'll tell you the lineup for the next few weeks before we get on with today, where it's going to be us four talking about recent guitars we've built or sort of trying to give people, maybe for me anyway, I've got some definite learning experiences, which I hope other people will not make the same mistakes as me when I talk about them. But yeah, we've got Simon next Friday from Nailsworth Community Workshop. I mean, his own guitars, but he also works there, and I'm very intrigued by that. And also, I don't know if the three of you know, but have you heard of Billy Bragg?
Mm-hmm.
I think I've asked that before.
I have, yeah.
Billy Bragg.
I've seen him a few times at festivals in Australia.
He's amazing. I think he's amazing anyway. I've seen him live a number of times. Very political guy. Simon built a guitar with the workshop for Billy Bragg. They built it in a day for him to play at a gig that evening. Amazing. Simon's on BBC Radio next Wednesday as well. Oh, well, you have to send us a link so we can try and listen afterwards because I'll be away. I don't know if I'll be able to listen to that. I've got a story about Billy Bragg. Remind me to tell you about that. Not a personal one, but just a story of his that I love. And then we've got Hello Sailor Joe from Hello Sailor Effects, who I met at the Brighton Guitar Show recently. He makes effects pedals, but he also customizes effects pedals. And he's got a YouTube channel in which he demonstrates some of these customizations. And sometimes it's as simple as taking a well-known cheap guitar pedal and putting expensive vintage components in it. So just sort of swapping out, not exactly like for like, but what I gather is sometimes the components he's putting in are more expensive than the pedals themselves. But it's incredibly interesting. And he's got a new YouTube live stream that I started watching, which is just too niche for me. I don't understand the electronics. It's another level. So I'm intrigued to talk to him. Then at the start of next month, we've got Mark and Steve from Theratone Studios. Mark's been on before, talking a bit about, hopefully with us, about guitar design and things like that. We've got Eddie from Electric Lady Studios, or Guitars, sorry, who is the person that makes those guitars where he sources all his materials local to him. And in fact, some of his guitars have the exact geolocation of where the wood was felled. Then we've got Bobby Jarvis Jr., who's a guitar instructor. And I think I noticed on TikTok the other day or Instagram, that some of his videos have got over 2 million views, which is pretty cool. I can't imagine that. What I can't imagine about that is how many comments there must be. And how many comments probably are the same thing repeated over and over. And then we've got Paul from Milehouse Studios, Milehouse Guitars, who everyone's been very eager to get on.
Awesome.
You've been busy lining all those people up, Daniel. Good job.
Good lineup.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get it out there at the beginning. And also I wanted to get it out there at the beginning to make sure people knew about these things before we dug into today. Because I'm not sure that a lot of people probably do what I do on some podcasts, which is when I'm listening to the podcast, if there isn't another one lined up for it just to automatically play into, when it gets to the end, when they're telling you all the interesting things about the following week, I've probably skipped to a different stream or something like that. So I'm under no illusions that people listen to the very end of our one.
I mean, you have to, because, I mean, we have, extra things in the credits more than Marvel does.
Yeah. Yeah, if only they were sort of spoilers for other ones. They're just often me going, what's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fun for me is it going to end at the end?
Well, let's leave that as a YouTube only thing as well, because I've been cutting that out of the audio ones.
That's probably wise.
Yeah. In the future, we could do it as we can claim it's a Patreon or something like that. The happy mistakes.
It's a shame you said that, because we could still have the audio people hanging around anyway.
Mm. Oh yes, no, I'll do something special for the audio people.
Nice.
Pressure.
So I want to know all about the color you chose for your telly, Scott. Let's start there.
Somewhere I got a picture of the spray can, because it was sunshine yellow, I think.
Nice.
I don't know. Just looking at the lineup, this was the one that jumped out at me. It was, mustard, egg yolk, super awesome, sunshiny yellow.
Oh. So do you want to hold that up again for the? Oh, very nice.
Man, I love the way Telecaster bridge pickups look like that when they're open.
Yeah, they
look awesome.
They kind of are pretty cool.
Yeah. And so I think I asked you once about the trem system. Like, how does it feel?
Dude, I hate this thing. It's like a Volkswagen. I mean, it is absolutely massive. It's hard to tune with fingers. It has halfway across the room. There's a little tool that I'm gonna have to put a magnet somewhere to hold it, because you kind of have to use it to adjust it. The adjustment is pretty nice and smooth. It's just you kind of have to use that little thing to do it.
So people that can't see, it's a headless guitar, so the tuners are all part of the bridge.
Yeah, the head, it was a fun adventure. Mostly because it's a 2x4 guitar, I wound up doing some goofiness. I used some angled aluminum to make a string retainer type of thing, and ignored the fact that the windings on strings is about half an inch at least. So I wound up having to just hammer damn nails into the head and clean them up for the ball ends. But it actually looked kind of cool.
It looks
those
really
string
cool.
windings always get me every time. Like, I never know how long those things are.
What I do like about the bridge, and this is a Geiger headless thing, those saddle pieces. There's one grub screw on this end or this side of the bridge that just sandwiches all of them together. So when you loosen that up, all of them are free floating. But as it turns out, I mean, under tension with strings up to pitch, you loosen that up and they move like silk. Yeah. So intonation was super easy. You could just slide them around however you wanted, tighten that grub screw up, and it just mashes them up against the other wall.
That's the way the Steinberger trim system is set up too.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, similar.
I've used. In fact, for a long time, my most successful video was a video on how to set up the Steinberger bridge, and that's really what got me into making videos about how to do things, because I just did it because I couldn't find instructions on it, and then as it started getting popular, it made me want to do things, and I love the way those saddles work. I think it's really clever because once they're tightened, they don't budge.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's just so easy to move them and get that intonation absolutely perfect.
I didn't quite expect that because it's so, I don't know. My first impression was this is really weird, and you had to pay it. Trying to place the bridge, the big thing was, since I did do multi-scale, I had to make sure that there was enough adjustment space for that. And one of the big key things was making sure that the lower E was, in a place where that grub screw would actually, make good contact with that saddle. Two things I don't like about it. It's hugely fat. I mean, it's like 3/4 of an inch off the body. And I didn't realize this. I didn't even look at the damn thing until I had cut the neck pocket and then realized. And there were some adventures that I would be horrified about if it weren't a 2x4 guitar where I spent $8 on lumber. But I had to switch gears immediately and glue a piece onto the heel that had a wedge.
So it's still that far out of the body, even though you've recessed the bridge into the...
Yeah, I didn't really recess it. That all that cavity is just for the part of it that flexes, because it's half of that bridge is just mounted directly onto the body, and the back half actually rotates. Yeah, right there. That bottom wacky piece is the little spring assembly. Yeah.
Out of interest, how was it quite affordable, that bridge?
I can't remember. Yeah, it was. I don't remember what I paid for it, but I think I spent like maybe $100 on all the hardware,
right,
including the pickups.
Because I've not used this Geiger one, but I've used the old budget one that was going around for years, which had Overlord of Music sort of stamped on it, and it's the one that came with a lot of the cheap headless guitar kits you could get, and it works exactly the same way, but it doesn't look anywhere near the quality that this one is. Like, this one looks really sturdy. This one felt like it would break when you were turning parts.
I mean, this one is definitely sturdy, and it feels really solid. It's not fabulous for a trim. I mean, it won't really dive bomb all that well, but I guess it turned out. I mean, it plays pretty fun, despite the fact it's a 2x4. So, I mean, mixed review, I suppose. There's some things about it I wasn't super happy about, but at the same time, on this guitar, it's kind of awesome.
Before we move on to the actual guitar, Mark, have you played many Steinbergs before?
Yeah, I used to collect them back in the day.
Yes, I remember. And
Yeah.
how in general are the bridges that are the equivalent of this, the trem bridges, compared to something like a Floyd Rose or a standard Strat?
It's a different experience. The really nice ones, so like the S trem, the R trem, and the trans trem, those were like high-end trems, and they felt like a normal trem. There was nothing wrong with them. We started getting into like the lower budget trems. They did feel different, and they had issues with kind of coming back after you use the trem, like back to like pitch. But I was always interested in just like the design and the engineering of the original trems. I like them. I sold most of my Steinbergers.
And with the Steinberger, is it, because I've worked on one once, and I remember it being a bit like Scott mentioned, where you can turn, like on the Geico one we just saw, you can turn the barrels for each individual string to tune it, but actually it's much easier to do it with like an Allen wrench in there. Or are they easy enough with the thing?
They were super easy. I never had an issue with that. Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. So that must be about the quality of their build then.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Oh, that's the tool.
Oh,
you're muted, Scott.
Lost sound there, Scott.
And it's gone. It is an Allen wrench, but it just came with just an extra barrel, basically. So it's a little tiny thing that yeah,
those overloaded music ones you couldn't turn by hand. They were terrible. So yeah,
I think you could with this, but it ain't easy.
If I share one of the first posts I saw you do about this guitar, do you want to step back and explain what your plan was and how you got to the finish thing?
My initial plan was take a telly shape and make it not disgusting to me. And I'm happy with it. I really am. But because, see, and I talked about this in video, because I've done a few 2x4 guitars, usually to test out something. And I try to keep in mind that despite the fact that it is a 2x4 guitar, not take shortcuts, be careful, treat it like any other build. And inevitably, I know it's a 2x4 guitar, and I don't. So, and from the outset, even with the design, I knew I wanted to just paint a pick guard just for aesthetic purposes. I didn't want to actually make one. I wanted, direct mounted pickups. So, I mean, it's in the initial design. But I wanted to do some of the features that I put on the last few guitars that you would never, ever see on a telly, like asymmetrical neck carve, not necessarily headless. That was, icing on the cake. But body carves, multi-scale, everything that is completely on telly as you could possibly think of. Yeah.
So this is partly because of the Yergs Cup, the challenge that we have each year to make something, and this year it's making out hardware shop bought equipment, the material. Sorry.
Yeah, that was the reason I decided to do a 2x4.
And out of interest, do you think that fan frets is just how you're going to be building from now on?
I kind of think so. Most of my builds have been just because I want to build, and I want to build what I want to build. I've been lucky enough in the last few that somebody has asked for something and they have very little guidance on. They want like the last one. My only input from the customer was purple's his favorite color. So, if color is the only real input I've got, I have, plenty of creative license to do what I want. But as such, I've about decided that somebody would have to specifically ask to not have an asymmetrical carve, for instance, for me to not do it. It doesn't have to be a multi-scale, but I don't know. I look at single scale now and kind of don't like it.
Hey, Scott, does it have a 0 fret?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that your first 0 fret?
No.
Oh.
No, I've it's kind of been a regular occurrence for some time now too. I'm not so hard and fast on that one, but I kind of like it. I know your aversion to it. I've run across so many people that say that headless is just so weird to them and they just can't get used to the idea and how it looks, and I don't understand. I really don't.
Yeah, it seems to be about the look more than the playability. Unless you've got that cheap bridge that we were talking about where you can't really tune it very well.
Yeah. I get the aversion to the 0 fret, but the headless thing, I don't get it. Guitar people are weird.
Do you think it goes back to the Steinberger design and that kind of almost brick shape?
I don't know, but I remember seeing Steinbergers way back when. I'd never put my hands on one, so I have no idea. My only complaint about headless, like my Strandberg, is you can't hang it, and that's it. And that's kind of the purpose behind the little. Mine's headless, but it has a little head, basically just so it has ears to hang from.
I thought Ola Strandberg posted something on social media where he kind of addressed that issue about hanging a headless. He concocted some kind of mechanism that kind of fit in a normal guitar hanger, but it made sure the headless wouldn't slip through. I thought I saw he posted something like that recently.
I haven't seen it, but I'd love to.
Scott, did I notice on the headstock as well that you've got the truss rod access through the top? Is that how you've done the truss rod access?
Nope. It's
yep.
Yeah, right at the end.
Exactly, yeah.
I didn't bother to clean it up. There are a few things about the 2x4 build that are definitely 2x4-ish. Honestly,
deliberately, are they deliberately 2x4-ish? But not that. Yeah, good.
Yeah, but there were some things I probably should have cleaned up. The neck wound up, paper thin. This is the thinnest neck I've ever carved in my life. And I was a little concerned, being a 2x4, that, I'd put strings on it and it would just collapse, and it's rock solid. 4-piece laminate, it's rock solid.
So was that an actual 2x4, or was it like plywood that you stuck?
No, it was 2x4s. Plain Home Depot, shitty pine 2x4s.
I've got a question for you about your design.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting. I'm sure there's a delay. I'll use that as the blame. I saw on your design, on the images we just put up, you drew it first. Scale. Is that how you do with most of your projects, most of your guitars?
Yeah, I've gotten used to doing that pretty regular. For initial plan, and I'll keep going back to it and comparing, even though things may change a little bit. But yeah, I really like to start from paper these days. If it's something different, if it's something I haven't quite done before. With the added bonus that I can take progress pictures on the drawing and have a little montage afterwards.
Yeah. It looks very smart. You've got your color Posca, your Sharpies there. Are they like aesthetic for the shot, or are they part of the process?
I had planned on there being different colors for it, because there have been some drawings where I draw strings and truss rod and other things, and I would color code them. So I got them out just in case I wanted to do that, and wound up not doing that. I think the last post, is the montage.
Oh yeah, should I put that on?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think these look. You've done a few of these now, haven't you? The sequence from the same angle. Oh, we lost him.
Oh, did I somehow boot him off?
Did.
Hey, what? Oh, here he comes. I think we're back.
There we go.
I think there are at least 3 of those that I've done.
How are you shooting it, Scott? Are you on a ladder?
Kind of little step ladder. Before a million years ago, my dad had bad knees, and he was always doing stuff in the shop. So there was a Christmas that we bought him a stool for the shop, and I have inherited that. And for quite some time, I would climb up on top of that to shoot pictures. But yeah, now I finally have a step stool, so I have less chance of breaking my neck in the shop.
It's very smart having that sort of one image fading to another and showing the development.
Yeah,
I think I watched one of your videos, Scott, and I think in it you were showing how you did the recessed jack. Can you talk about that? I've never done one, and I know I have a few guitars that have that, but can you talk about that process?
It's terrifying. Every time I've done it, I've tried to work out a way to be fairly strategic and know that if I start here, I'm going to go this deep and I'll have this much left, and I kind of just have to go for it and hope for the best. And so far, nothing has screwed up tremendously. But I've got a jig. I think it's like a 60 degrees platform that I will clamp to the base of my drill press. I've got a picture somewhere, and go really slow with a Forstner bit to tear in. And
yeah, that looks frightening.
Yeah, it's fairly terrifying. This particular one, if I can get the back plate off, I need a tool. Yeah, pencil, something. My magnets are too good. This one I had to wind up doing some crazy stuff because I didn't have a real clear picture of what I wanted to do with the cavity, but I kind of figured. Well, initially I hadn't planned on using the plate. I was gonna, and I wound up just out of laziness. I thought, screw it, I'll just use the Telly style straight plate. I can't get the back panel off.
Scott, I'm just going through your YouTube videos to try and find the video of you doing that Forstner bit drill, but I can't find it. Is it possible you haven't uploaded it yet and you maybe shared it with us?
For this build, I haven't yet.
Right.
There was something similar done on the last one, but I wound up going all the way through for this one, and I wound up making a larger spot over here specifically for the jack, mostly just so I could actually reach the damn thing. But yeah. But from a player's perspective, I've come to appreciate that, the angle, so you can just drape it over your, strap. That's gonna be a common feature too. I mean, everybody talks about the Strat design being the, kind of the perfect match for playability, when I think Strandberg kind of got everything right.
So it's a bit like the Strat Jack, but at the wrong angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when Trent was on, Mr. Babinga, we talked to him about his process as well, which was similar to yours to do that. I think it just looks really smart as well. Regardless of if it's useful, it just looks cool.
It looks awesome.
I had seen a couple, and I can't remember what brand they were, but I'd seen a few bases that were done like that with just a natural hole. And they looked really clean and nice. So
I have an Ibanez AZ. I don't know if all the AZs have it, but it's got a very similar recessed upside down jack, but it's on the side of the body. Very similar to like the Ibanez Gems. Like the original Gems had it upside down recessed, but the AZs have it too, at least my AZ. And then I have a Charvel Pro Mod that has the upside down Strat plate on the side of the guitar too. So it seems to be a trend too to kind of put it on the side. But I love the upside down thing. I'm totally down with that.
And is it just simply a washer holding the jack in place at the end of that?
Well, you've got, I used to have one lying around. If you look at the jack, even in the, like the Strat little plate, there's a nut and a washer that just holds the nut, the jack in place, which is easy enough to take off.
And sorry if I just missed it when I was looking for your YouTube video, but what made you have the back access for the electronics as well as the front? It
just made things easier, especially looking at the jack. I thought I need to have some kind of access, and since I spent $8 on lumber anyway, I thought I'll just route all the way through and I'll put a back plate, and who cares?
Because seeing the body before you painted it and assembled it, it just looks so weird having that the hole that's the shape of the telly flat plate all the way through the body.
Yeah. It wasn't the initial plan, but and really I think it was the jack mostly. So I could have probably done a much smaller little back plate, but at the time I thought, screw it, I'll just go all the way through.
Can I put a question out to everyone then, in related to what Scott just said, that it wasn't the plan? When you're building, and I think I know the answer from having spoken to you both before, but how much of it do you need to have planned before you actually start chopping the wood up? Because I'm a lot like Scott. I think I know what I'm doing, and then as I'm building it, I'll realise, I need more access there. So suddenly I'll route a bigger hole somewhere or change the shape slightly.
Yeah, my answer would be as much as possible, which is never enough.
Right.
Yeah, I think I plan probably as much as I can, and I'll kind of play around on the computer in Illustrator. That's where I've been doing a lot of my sort of design stuff in, and I just go through lots of different variations until I really get something I like. And I kind of like doing that as well, because it means I don't have to be in the garage all the time and clear the bench off to kind of do something I can sit at the computer and do it. But even like having done all that, once you start cutting holes and routing things out, it looks different and it feels different, and you see the physical size of a hole that you want to run wires through or fit components. And the guitar I'll share in a minute is exactly this kind of thing, that I've planned heaps of things on it for how it'll work, but it's not until I start routing holes and cavities that I'll realize that no, I actually need to make that bigger or smaller, or a centimeter that way or a centimeter that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I for many years I did exactly what Scott's doing, drew everything out first. But a lot of that was about all the aesthetics of it all and the shape. And then as soon as I started putting components in, I'd start noticing that some things weren't quite right. And that often happened when you have a physical body that you're holding. I suddenly realized, actually, with my strange new design, I need to move the volume control or something very slightly from my original design. And occasionally it's happened that the piece of wood I have has just been the wrong size, so my designs had to change.
Sometimes that's the fun though, and I think there are times when I make a plan knowing that that's probably not how it's going to go, specifically because it's going to be fun to deviate. I guess that makes me a deviant.
One thing I've liked about your recent videos, Mark, is that your videos show you developing a process or developing an idea. So we see that sort of stage, and a lot of that is to do with you experimenting with the equipment and the materials before you know it works.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of computer work, like more computer work than being in the shop for me. And I have to have all the components available so I can measure them. The only guitar I didn't have that ability to do was for the last Great Guitar Build-Off build because of the timeline. So I was building without the parts in my possession.
Same with me for that one. We were in a similar position.
But if I have the parts and I know the dimensions, a lot of times some of these manufacturers will publish the dimensions. Like Hipshot is great at, if you go to their website, they give you the schematic and you can see every single dimension on that product. So, and I can design that way. But a lot of times I'm also able to set like a variable. So if I don't know what size like a hole is supposed to be, for example, I can set a variable. I can say, okay, it's 3 mil. But then when I get the part in and it's really 4, I can change the variable and it just cascades down to my design and everything gets changed. So I can work that way too. But for the most part, I have to know the sizes for everything.
Yeah, I'd love to. When you talk like that, Mark, it makes me again realize how much there is within the CNC or 3D printing world and the design process that I just don't realize is there. The ability to cascade things, for example, and not just have to physically change everything.
If your workflow, if you remember to do that in your workflow, then yeah, you can take advantage of parametric modeling, which allows you to set variables and then change them down the road, and then everything in the past kind of cascades and everything's updated. But you have to remember to do that. It's not like part of the workflow. You have to build that in.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, just so people know, the live. Oh, I forgot to check for Gabi. Sorry, last week she was saying when she watched back she couldn't see the live chat. So you should be able to see the live chat that's happening in the stream now. There's a bit of a discussion about about fighting and punching people, and me getting a Disney film confused with a Finlandic sniper who fights Nazis, who, according to Ray, looks a bit like Arran. So
I'll have to look that one up, Ray. So I don't have ability to type in the comments at the moment for this stream, but I'll look into it for you. But no, I don't know. Don't think I've seen that one.
I missed the context on that.
It's just what Arran currently looks like with his beard.
Yeah.
Scott, so I guess one more thing which is what Mark started this off with. Did you always know it was going to be that yellow?
Yeah. I wanted yellow. That was one of the main things I did know, because it was a 2x4 and it wasn't going to be pretty wood for a change. I was going to paint, and yellow was the plan. I didn't think about the fact that the last time I painted anything, it was macaroni noises, and it might have been the same yellow or real close to it. Somebody actually asked me on one of the videos if it was macaroni yellow, and I was like, I'm not sure. I need to look.
And is that just like a spray you've applied?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great.
Rattle can, Rust-Oleum, Sunshine Yellow, I believe it was.
So I'd notice a lot people using Rust-Oleum on things I watch on American channels, not just guitar building. And I don't know how popular it is here, but I bought a can the other day for something else I'm building, not a guitar, a mic stand. And it was a can of their matte black. And it was really good quality. I was very impressed with it. Not something I've really used before.
Honestly, I kind of haven't been. I I haven't done a lot of painting before, but in the past, a lot of the finishes were lacquer, it's rattle can lacquer. But I used to be able to get deft, and I loved deft. The first time I tried Rust-Oleum, I was not impressed. It didn't spray as evenly, but it's gotten to where that's kind of all I can find.
Someone mentioned that it might be a good idea to have an episode about finishing. So I'm going to try and get a couple of, or contact a couple of people that might be what we might hopefully call experts on it, on to help talk us through the processes they use.
Nice. On this last build I did, I experimented with truck bed liner, which I've been wanting to do for a long time, because truck bed liner has this natural texture to it. It's as a very high build paint. It's a very sturdy paint, so it's meant, to throw on your truck bed, and you can throw cinder blocks on it or whatever. And it's supposed to be pretty durable. But I wanted it for the high build aspect, because I wanted to hide all the imperfections of the 3D lines on the build. And I didn't want to actually have to sand the parts. And it came out really awesome. I have maybe a few pictures of it. It's a great product. The only thing I didn't like about it is that it had a sheen to it. So there was light hitting it and reflecting, and I didn't care for that. I wanted something matte. So I used that truck bed liner, and then I sprayed over it with just a matte textured paint. And that's what I got basically for my 3D printed guitar.
So what's the truck bed liner? What color is that before you sprayed over it?
It's black, but it's got all these tiny little specks of just a highlight in there, like a reflective, almost like a glitter, but I'm not calling it a glitter. It's like something speckled that I didn't care for, but it looks fantastic. And I think it would be a great way to paint a guitar.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm all up for different experimental finishes and things. Hey, Mark, while we're on your guitar, can I share your video that your most I think it's your most recent one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's about 2 weeks ago or so.
You seem to be pumping your videos out at the moment. So I'll put it on without sound, just so we've got some images in the background. Well, that's a bit weird having two of you on the screen at once.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a lot of Mark there.
But this one's muted.
Mm-hmm. So this was just a quick demonstration of the kind of inspiration that I took for designing the guitar. And the inspiration came from this idea of generative design, where computers can actually generate the most efficient and optimized way to build something. And they tend to look very alien. And I wasn't able to do that. So I basically just built it myself. I was kind of adding all these random curves, random lines to get the kind of see-through aspect of it. And there's two layers of it. There's a pattern on the front and a different pattern on the back. So then you look through it, you see kind of the two different patterns, and there's negative space between the two. That was the whole concept. I knew that was going to work. And then it was just hours and hours and hours and days of building this in CAD. That's a lot of geometry, a whole lot. And you're doing this by hand. There's no other way to do this but manually. It's just like working in the shop. And so once I actually had it designed, then it was just the basic parts of a guitar, like the humbucker route and the wire channels, all that kind of easy stuff that I've done a million times. But that was just the first part of it, because I never 3D printed a guitar, and I'm brand new to 3D printing, and I knew I wanted to give it a shot. And I've been working with laser companies for a while, and I get free lasers, and I make videos for them. And I thought, well, some of these laser companies actually sell 3D printers, maybe I'll reach out to them and maybe they can send me one. And they did. So I got this, I got free 3D printers. That's what I do on YouTube. And I give them content in return. And sometimes I get paid, sometimes I don't. But I was basically just putting my 10,000 hours, and I watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of YouTube videos on 3D printing, hundreds of hours. And none of that helped. What helped was basically chatting with Ray. So Ray is a 3D printing guitar master. And all I did was message him with all my concerns. And I had no confidence whatsoever. And I just asked him, well, what about this? What about that? What are your thoughts on this? What do you suggest for this? And he's just the kindest dude in the world. He wrote me lengthy explanations that were like, concise, but full of knowledge. He's just a knowledge nugget giver. and so it was just because of him, I had the confidence to go, okay, I'm going to start building. So then I have to cut the guitar to fit on the bed because the bed is only 240 millimeters by 240 millimeters by 240 millimeters. So it's about like figuring out how you're going to cut up the guitar to fit on the bed and to print. Here is the carbon fiber rods. So I was worried, 100% worried about the rigidity of PLA. So I did 4 channels and they're on 2 different planes. So pair go through the heel, so when you push them in, they stop at the humbucker and they're invisible, right? The holes on the heel you won't see because that's where the neck goes. There's another plane beneath them that runs along the entire length of the neck to the bridge. So 4 carbon fiber rod slots, and you have to build these in once you're gluing and assembling everything. And I just used epoxy, 5-minute epoxy. And I use surgical tubing. Surgical tubing is kind of like my go-to clamping system for irregular shapes, and I recommend it highly, and I've been recommending it in all my videos for the last couple of years. I once heard someone say that you could, with enough surgical tubing, you could cut an elephant in half. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, but like it's true. There's a lot of clamping pressure with surgical tubing, a lot, and you would be very surprised. And so you have this irregular shape, you got to go in all these different directions, and you got to be clamping in different locations. You just can't do that with traditional clamps. Surgical tubing is the way to go, and I highly suggest it. Then after that, it's just a matter of kind of like figuring out what to do with the lack of cohesion between the different parts, because all the parts look different because they were printed at different orientations on the bed. And so they looked different. And so that's why I decided to paint. I decided not to sand because I just don't like sanding. And I think it came out pretty good for my first 3D printed guitar. In this section here, what I did was prior to printing, I took sections of the actual guitar to make sure that all my parts fit. So I had a Chinese neck I bought off eBay, like a Jackson knockoff, which was a left-handed neck because I wanted the reverse headstock. And I needed to basically print that heel to see if it fit. It did perfectly. The tolerances for 3D printing are very similar to CNC machines, so I was able to kind of use the numbers I'm used to using for adding, enough width for that neck to fit. And then the rest is just waiting around. I think this piece took 9 hours to print.
Yep.
Someone said in the chat, or Menno said in the chat, before you mentioned how long it took to print, how much work has gone into, obviously, all the stages of the designing and the making. And I think that's an easily missed thing for some people who might look at something 3D printed and think, oh, well, that's easy. You just type a button, press a few buttons on the computer, and out it comes. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to see the process and hear the process.
Well, people say the same thing about CNC machines, like, yes. Oh, you just push a button. And I always thought about building like a joke video about pushing the button, just sitting back and drinking a margarita. Yeah. But people don't understand. Like, I think I'm a better designer than I am a guitar builder. And design is my strong suit. Being in front of a computer is my strong suit. And I have a tiny little 13-inch laptop with a trackpad. I don't even use a 5-button mouse. Like, I do everything wrong. Like, I do everything the wrong way. So I'm literally in bed, propped up on pillows, my tiny little 13-inch laptop, tiny screen with a trackpad, and I design everything for hours. And I'll sit there for an entire day just designing, and another day designing. And people don't understand that that's the whole thing is just on the computer. You have to build it perfectly on the computer first. Then I can like babysit the 3D printer, right? Then it's just like hit a button, and then okay, 9 hours later I'm gonna get that piece, right? And then
that's
the same thing for each piece. Yeah.
Then it'd be a mountain of anxiety, hoping that reality met the road right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, for those of you that don't know, when Mark mentioned Ray, he's from Created Unlimited Designs, and I mean he's one of our regulars when we have our last stream of each month, when we do it in a slightly different time, so we can get the people like himself that are in Australia, including Arran, then to be involved. But he's been on the show before, specifically just where we focused on him and his builds. So it's worth going back and looking out for that on YouTube.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. And again, I watched hundreds of hours of YouTube videos, and none of them gave me the confidence. It was just talking to Ray that did it. But I had this. I know I tend to like title my YouTube videos with a little bit of clickbait, and this one, the clickbaity thing here was impossible geometry, which is kind of partially true. But the idea is there's certain things you can only do with a 3D printer. Even if you had like a 5-axis CNC machine, you couldn't do these things. You cannot do these things with any other machine except an additive machine that can do additive construction. Now, of course, you could build this by hand if you had it sliced and laminated everything, certainly. But when I think about like impossible geometry, there's a lot of things I do with the control cavity where I'm designing inside the actual control cavity that you just cannot do with a CNC. The only way to do this is with a 3D printer.
Can I just ask here, so is this the surface that's had the spray on it?
No, none of this is sprayed. So that's the surface that touches the bed, which is what I learned from Ray. So you print upside down, and whatever texture the bed has is applied to the kind of hot plastic. And that was the last piece I built. So that lower right-hand wing with the control cavity was the last piece I did. None of the pieces looked like that. They all look different.
And you have to have a texture, or it doesn't have any way to actually adhere to the bed.
Mm-hmm. And now it's really cool. I saw they make beds now that have like a carbon fiber texture, so you can actually imprint carbon fiber weave, and like holographic textures too. So they have these like micron tiny little textures that refract light, and they imprint that into the plastic so that your piece comes out and it looks like a hologram. I thought it was like so cool.
Wow,
that's amazing. Yeah, I remember Ray showing us some of the different sheets he had. Yeah, it's hard to imagine as 3D printing's not new, but the mass use of 3D printing is becoming more and more prevalent. So it's hard to imagine how different 3D printing is going to be in 5 or 10 years when it's even more embedded in our everyday life, and there's more companies making it and more people innovating with it, which I assume is going to happen. I don't think it's going to disappear.
I think you're right. And I think I jumped in at the right time, because I'm glad I didn't jump into it like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, where I think you needed to have a fluency in that type of like technology in order to actually get anything done. And now it's so easy. Like the machine I have, I don't do anything. Like I turn it on, it does auto leveling, auto this, auto that. It does just everything. And all I do is like send wirelessly my print from my computer to the printer, and then it just goes. Like it's a one step for me, like one step.
it looked like to me the kind of reminiscent of the early days of computers, where you had nerds in their garage, soldering capacitors to PCB. It looked like it was such a DIY. When I first got in, you could get something where all these mods had already been done, but it really looked like it was, I don't even know how to describe it. That the early days were really people just, figuring this out on their own.
Yep. I agree with that 100%. You had to have some kind of nerd quality to the whole like idea of wanting to try it. Like, but now it's consumer grade. Like any consumer can just pick one up and just go and within 15 minutes, done.
Yeah. The caveat there is when something goes wrong, it takes so much research and worry to try to figure out what this issue really is, how to address it, what it's going to take, and sometimes that requires taking things apart and finding one little piece in there to replace. And yeah.
In case anyone want to take a look at that. So it is a Geiger. It's a Geiger bridge. So this is their hip shot clone. It's a really great bridge. This is that Allegory Heatwave. I hate this pickup. So this is the one we got for guitar, Great Guitar Build Up. They sent it to me like free. I thought I have it. I'll try it. It's supposed to be like a overwound Alnico. It just sounds terrible. I can't stand it. And then just a Chinese neck. So I got a left-handed neck. Because you got to have the reverse headstock, right? And so like it does have side dots like on the bottom because it was left-handed. But I put in some brass ones on the top. And yeah, typical stuff. I did magnets for the control cavity here, and I just like you, Scott. I can't get it out. There's no thumb notch or anything. Just like it's stuck in there forever. And then,
well, and I only got one magnet, and on the back piece, I just, because it's thin, I just put a epoxied washer in there, so I only had to use one magnet instead of two. But it's still snug.
I need your advice, because when it comes to me talking about my guitar, one of the issues I had was magnets just not being strong enough. So where are you both buying your magnets from?
Amazon. Yeah.
Home Depot.
Right, well, clearly I'm doing something wrong, but we'll get to my problems later.
Yeah. I've done one guitar with the magnet pickup or the cavity cover, and same problem. The magnets were too big and couldn't get it off, and it's just a volume 1 pickup. So once again, it doesn't matter.
Now, I just ordered a whole bunch of little tiny ones off of Amazon that I haven't tried yet, but with different sizes, but they're really small. So I thought that might be fun to play with. The ones I got were from like Home Depot, and I can, like I said, I can do a washer on the plate side, and they're pretty strong.
So I thought I had rare earth magnets, but I bought really thin ones, so I didn't have to recess them very much, and they just don't have the strength.
I use 3 millimeter thick.
Yeah, so mine are 1 mil. I doubt they're less than 1 mil, but they're definitely 1 mil. They're tiny, thin things. I thought they'd be really strong, but it hasn't worked for me.
Mark, with the weight of the guitar, when we first started talking to Ray about his, I was actually quite surprised that he was saying that they're often heavier than a timber guitar. Now, yours is obviously hollow, so how does it feel weight-wise compared to timber guitars or other guitars you've built?
That's an awesome question, because it is heavy. So, each spool of filament is 1 kilogram, I think, right?
Yep.
And I almost went through 2 spools, so that's 2 kilograms of filament for this body. It's heavy, so this is not a light guitar at all. And so everybody's talking about well, what about neck dive? There's no problem, because this body is pretty heavy. So what? I don't know kilograms. I'm just saying that out loud. How many pounds is that? Like 3.5, 4 pounds or something? I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think. I haven't played or held or seen a 3D printed guitar, but just in my head, when you think plastic compared to wood, it's got to be lighter, and then you sort of see that one with the hollows, and it's like, oh, that must be really light. So I need to get my hands on it. I've got to go visit Ray one day and play some, so I can feel what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I assume Rays are going to be heavier, right? It's going to be much heavier.
Yep.
From what I remember, his are essentially, a lot of them are sections that are jigsawed together, each section being hollow with a top put on. So yes, heavier than yours, but it's still not solid. But I'm intrigued thinking about the weight of it. So I don't want to talk about tone wood, but if you're having hollow sections like that, is there some sort of reverberation that's happening in it, do you think?
No, I noticed right away that this particular design actually doesn't resonate as well as I thought it would. So I think maybe having either a true hollow, like a cavity, would be really nice, or having it solid would be nice. But this whole see-through design, there's no acoustical chambers in here, right? There's not even solid. So yeah, it doesn't resonate as well as I'd like it to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, so look, I will later on be updating the description to this video. And once it goes out on the audio and all the different podcast catchers that you can get, it will have the updated description as well. So it'll have links to your video. It'll have links to Scott's Instagram, so you can see images of his guitar as well. And it will have links to our back catalogue. And one thing I'm going to do is put together some playlists where I collect different episodes of the Guitar Builders Collective chat into themes. And one of them will be 3D printed guitars. So I'll drop this one in there along with the ones where Ray's talked about 3D printing. We've had Ben from Battle Plan Harmonicas talking as well about how he 3D prints his harmonica stands, which for me was a great introduction into understanding how 3D printers worked, before Ray then went into how they work in relation to guitars. I'm intrigued to try it, but I haven't got the money to invest in new equipment. And when I do, the choice is going to be 3D printer or CNC. Now, I appreciate for you, Mark, 3D printing's new, so it might have that added new level of excitement. But have you got a favourite at the moment? Have you got a suggestion if someone was to get into doing it? Because from what I gather, the software is more or less the same that you're going to be using.
Exactly the same, yeah. I guess definitely CNC would be the way to go, because you're already so used to like working with wood, and you kind of understand its properties and how it reacts. So definitely start there for sure.
Nice, great, thank you. There's something I wanted to, before we go on to either Arran or myself, there's something I wanted to also mention, which is we have a lot of regulars in the chat, and I feel like what might be good is the people that are regulars in the chat. Do you think you could also leave a comment in the actual video description, not just in the live chat, because not everyone sees the live chat? And the reason for this is there's a few people like Menno who's been regularly chatting and putting up questions recently, and is now suggesting CNC hands down. He mentioned earlier that he took his 3D printer with him when he moved to the forest and never uses it. Yeah, there's people that I see their names. I thought, I don't really know their channels, and I've recently gone and checked them out. And it's great to support those guys as well, because there's some really interesting things. Menno, and I didn't say this to you yet, but I'd really love to get you on one day if you don't mind. Yeah, I watched some of his videos, and he has literally moved from America to Ecuador to his grandfather's farmland. If I'm right, Menno, you make guitars using wood that you fell from the nearby forest, and the problems you seem to have to deal with your guitar building are incredibly scary looking insects that grow in the wood, and bats that come in and do their business all over your tools. So it's like another world almost of guitar building. I'm very intrigued. Great if you will come on. I'll have to contact you properly.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you might not have a chance yet to put something in the comments, but I do recommend checking each other out. And also another way to do that is with the Guitar Builders Collective Instagram page, because on the Instagram page, Corey will share images that people have put up of the guitars that they've made and are building, and then you can see the links to their Instagrams and go and follow them. I think it's a great way to do it. But yeah, the idea of having to leave the lights on in my workshop all the time to make sure the bats don't come in and use it as a toilet is just bonkers to me. That's very entertaining. Great. Arran, did you want to tell us a bit about what you're working on at the moment? Because you said you were actually working on something else.
Yeah, so this is one I've just had in the background. So I haven't sort of posted anything sort of anywhere. So it's sort of come from... I've said before that I'm at a stage where I've had a few commissions and building for other people, and not in a sort of place to be able to build multiple, or not in a financial place to be able to build multiple guitars to try to sell. And I sort of started thinking about, well, what guitar could I build as a test instrument or a trial kind of thing. So I've got it here where it's up to. So it's the same sort of shape that I've been sort of doing on the current build. So it's using sort of the cheaper recycled timber. So that's more of the recycled blackwood that I've used for a lot of the time so far. Plain maple fretboard. I've never used maple fretboard before. So first time doing that. But it's the body that is, hopefully we can see. So same body shape. But if I bring it in, and this is the scary part that I'm about to do. So if you notice there, so I've got control cavities done. Try and go on that way. But the idea is that this guitar will be one that I can sort of mod and change things in and out. So as you can see there, and I've designed all this on the computer so far, All those holes are different sort of layout styles, whether it's like a Les Paul or PRS or sort of Fender style. And that's kind of my idea, that I will drill access for 3 or 4 different wiring options. So if I want to feel how a Les Paul layout sort of works on this sort of style and shape, I can put those in, even fill the other holes with some little rubber plugs or something, and really, just play with that layout of controls, because that's sort of something that when I get to that stage of drilling the holes, I probably spend too much time thinking about the exact position where I want things and what it will feel like. So that's sort of one of the features. The other one, you can sort of roughly, if we get the angle right, sort of 3 large pickup routes. So the idea is that I'll be able to swap pickups in and out easily, just to try different combinations. I've thought about the reverse mounting them, so it'll be easier to take it in and out quickly, just to try different combinations. But I kind of, I haven't found an easy way that I'm sort of happy with to do that. And I'll probably have locking tuners on it anyway. So that's kind of, if it's easy to take the strings off and bring the pickups out the top, then I'll probably go with that. But the other thing that I want to sort of add on this one is that I've used, a few of the guitars that I've done, I've had the inbuilt effects. So which one am I going? That one there, the fuzz face circuit that was in that one, and the other one, Doctor Who guitar with all the crazy stuff. So I actually want to experiment with putting guitar effects in. So what my plan is that I'll have a cavity up the top, so route out quite a large cavity, where I can put in some different boost or fuzz circuits, but actually make it sort of big enough that I can put multiple things in just to test and see the difference. So I've got one of the guys, or the guy that built the fuzz face circuit for that one there. He has his own pedal making business, and he's sort of planning on designing a few little circuits that would be suitable for something like this. So the idea as well, just because I like making it as well, not overcomplicated, but just having fun with it, that the plan is that I'll have the cavity to put different effects in, but in this part, I don't know if you can see in the angle, let me bring it that way. So I've kind of got this part here marked out, and that's the idea that I'll have, where are we? A rotary knob there, so I can very quickly and easily swap. If I've got 3 or 4 circuits in there, I can quickly just swap between circuits to test the difference. The one, so this fuzz face one, obviously the controls are all trim pots on the circuit board, so I don't want to have multiple controls on the top of a guitar. I kind of think that if it's in a guitar, you don't want to overcomplicate things. So I think for this kind of guitar, my plan is that I'll whatever the volume is, or the volume on the circuits, will have an external volume knob here that can be permanently on there. And then if I get to the stage where I can change effects in and out, I'll just wire the volume in here, just so I can kind of get a balance with the guitar, and then adjust everything internally for fuzz or like the biasing for a fuzz pedal or something like that. So in essence, that's kind of the idea that I've got, that I can kind of try things on this guitar rather than having to build 2, 3, 4 guitars each with a variation of something to see what it's like, or to see if like a potential client would like something like that as well.
I think that's really interesting. I've not on the level you're at, but I feel slightly inspired by what you've done, is that I need something just to test out the electronics, the basic electronics of how I'm going to set up which type of pot, audio, linear, at which value, which capacitors and things like that. And I've got a guitar that I made to test out when I was doing the Great Guitar Build Off with the iPad, which is just a plank of wood. And I was going to just stick things onto that, but actually having a proper guitar body with all the holes in it, where I can just access it in a different way might be more interesting. I bought lots of little breadboards that I can set up my different pots on, and I was just going to wire them in and out one at a time, but actually having it all together, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's all in my head as a mess, but I feel quite inspired to have something properly made, physical like that, because it's such a useful, it's going to be for you, and I'm sure for me, such a useful tool. But yours has all those extra elements of layout, design, etc., which is great.
And that's what, to fit in what I can without going, oh, well, I think I've got, sounds like I'll end up going over the top anyway. But even to, wire it up in a way that I can have just quick connectors in there so I don't have to solder and desolder everything to change things out. So that's kind of, and it's just, I don't know, for me, trying something different and having, I enjoy thinking about these things. So would all of this work together and how would I make it work? And then to kind of know that I can do that. And I'm using recycled timber that I've got lying around. The tops are part of the blackwood still. The bodies, I think it's Queensland silver ash, which I think I bought from a local lumber yard, which wasn't that expensive anyway. So, that's the kind of one that I'm having fun with. But a bit like we're talking about the planning, that I'm up to the stage of drilling those holes and drilling 10 volume and tone controls in a top is a little bit daunting. So I've paused a bit till I make sure that everything that I want to include in there will work. And it's going to have a few cavities obviously, but I want to make them big enough so everything will fit that I would like to have in there, but not too big that the whole back is just going to be one big open cavity.
I was about to ask that, Arran. So did you draw the cavity already? Do you have an example of what that big cavity will look like?
I've got it's on. I don't have the computer probably set up to share it, but on I use Adobe Illustrator, so all my design work's all 2 dimensions at the moment. I haven't got into. I'd love to be able to, do like what you do in 3 dimension and be able to look at it from different angles. But essentially, the best way I've sort of worked out is that there we go. There'll be a square sort of cavity here, which will, since I've got the rotary switch and I think I've got room for 4 volume controls. So that'll kind of fit there behind the bridge. And then the idea is along the top, probably this, a rectangular shape to fit the circuits in. And then probably down here, a battery, compartment box to obviously power the things in it. But the circuit, so like a simple fuzz circuit or a boost circuit isn't that big. Like it doesn't actually take up a lot of space. So mapping it out on Illustrator to fit 4 circuits along that top actually is very, very manageable. And it's fun to do. I've made a few. As I said, it's a mate that has got the pedal company that designed that one and can do. He's got lots of ideas that he has. He's actually the this blue guitar here that I'm modifying. That's his guitar, or one of his that I'm working on. But I've built a few simple pedal kits before, so to even buy a few different kind of boosts or different fuzz or simple gains or something just to put in, flick that rotary switch and see what the difference is. And it's all just experimental stuff for me. But then if I get commissions, I can when someone says, or when I say, look, what kind of layout do you want for the controls, I can mock something up and put it in here and lend it to them for a bit, and they can knock themselves out and have a play.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So we always think about tools in our shop, right? And that's just another tool. I mean, everybody needs an experimental guitar they can use as a tool to kind of work things out. Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it is that, I do enjoy the design on the computer, but it is, where my stage is 2-dimensional designs. And this is what I was sort of mentioning earlier, that once I start routing holes and, drilling channels and things, that's, I kind of need that 3D physical thing. And it's, once again, this is a hobby for me that I enjoy. And this is the kind of stuff now that I'm enjoying doing, thinking about, can this work? Will it work? I've even thought about doing, so it's a 25.5 inch scale length. So this neck, but I've even thought about making a short fender scale length neck for the same guitar that I can switch in and out. Obviously, I can't move the bridge. The bridge will be fixed, so there might be a few, the high frets that might be accessible. But once again, to build a neck that I can just bolt on for a short scale neck, just to see how a humbucker sounds different between, scale length, which I can probably change over pretty quick. If I've got locking tuners on it, 4 screws to hold it in place, within 5 minutes, I could probably swap a neck over to see how much difference the scale length would be on, a pickup combination or electronics or those kind of things.
As long as I've been building, I've wanted to do something where I've got like an overdrive or a distortion on board, but that's a whole another level there.
So I've got a question about that, because I have been buying cheap guitar pedals and taking them apart to experiment with the idea of putting them into guitars or putting them into other things. And I'm in two minds whether that's actually the way forward or whether to buy the kits, like Jed's Peds in the UK sells pedal kits that I could buy and build into it, because sometimes taking them apart, especially the cheap ones, their circuit boards are designed so compact and so strangely that some of the components are quite hard. I'm finding quite hard to swap in and out. So I wondered how you were doing it with your friend who's the pedal builder. Is he sending you like a pedal that you're taking apart, or
actually, I've had I'll see if we can get him on for an episode.
That'd be great.
I've mentioned it to him, and he's reasonably keen. He's sort of got a new line of pedals and enclosures that he's sort of working on. So, yeah, he does it as a serious sort of enterprise to build and sell pedals. So, it's literally just the circuit board that for this Middle Earth guitar that he sort of designed, which essentially it's a modified fuzz face. And then on that one there, all the wiring, it's just directly off the circuit. So it is just the circuit board, it was all trim pots for that, so nothing sort of external. But I know a few months ago he sent me, a few images of designs that he'd done for this kind of thing. So actually, I haven't told him about this guitar yet, so I'll have to share it pointing the way. So yeah, as I said, that's his guitar that I've been working on, and that's only a week or two away. So I'll have to, when I get that to him, I'll run through this idea. But yeah, he'd sent me a few months ago some circuit designs that he was he designed, hasn't made them yet or got them made up. But yeah, he, like all of us, he gets ideas and what he wants to do for his pedal making and how it fits in guitars. And I've been lucky enough to be able to share some of that with him.
And I've got two more questions. One is your surface of the guitar with the bits marked out. Had you planned that on paper and then transferred it across, or did you, you go straight on?
No, so that was all done online. So yeah, Adobe Illustrator. I think and then I printed it off and put over the top, and then just transferred it over that way. So I might have. I think when I marked these out, I might have changed a few. Just kind of, when you see it, it looks a bit different. But essentially, I like kind of doing that as well. A bit like Mark was saying too, that you can design in comfort on your laptop for as long as you want. And sometimes I just enjoy sitting at a desk in front of the computer, playing in that world rather than going around the garage having to move things and measure things and get things in and out. Essentially all online, and then sort of transfer it over, but then kind of looking at it and then also putting just placing knobs on top of it, and then you kind of look at one, it looks a bit too close to the edge, and I'll still do the comfort carves around the side. So it's making sure that where I put the cavities, I'm not going to be carving into them when I do that kind of thing as well. So initially on the computer, and then finessing, I probably say is the right way to describe it once I get into the real thing.
And then the most important question for me, on your shelf behind you, is that like a Tascam cassette 4-track multi?
It is.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So my teenage years were based around those things.
Yeah, that one there. It is. That is exactly what it is. I just I knew I had it yeah, that was from mid to late 90s. I had that one when I was playing in an original band, and that was you couldn't record on computers then, or you could, but it would take up the whole computer's memory just to record 3 minutes of audio. So I've still got all the old tapes that we used to record demos of our songs, and when we were songwriting and those kind of things. So yeah, and see, does it still work? It certainly does.
Fantastic.
Those things are getting harder to find now, that working ones. And if you go on eBay and look at the prices on them, they're crazy. Like, people are asking crazy amounts of money for those things.
I think that's when that's how I got it out again, because I think I'd seen on Instagram or Facebook or someone, a few people had posted them or saw them on sale, or someone had shared a link. It's like, oh, that's exactly what I've got. So yeah, dug it out and made sure the old tapes still work, and yep, they certainly do.
I saw Rhett Shaw analysing a guitarist who he'd not heard of, but is quite a new recent guitarist. I don't remember the name at all, but what he was interested in was the sounds this guy was getting. And one of the sounds was by running his guitar through his old Tascam, and somehow the preamp on that just distorted the guitar slightly. And that's what he was using to get his sort of overdriven sound. It's crazy. But yeah, I remember many weekends of being at friends' houses with that in the middle and little mics and things running into our amps.
We used to rehearse just at my parents' house, and we'd have that that in one room, and then we just bought cheap mics and with as long a leads as we can. If the lead was long enough to go into the room next door, then we'd stick someone in that room, and we had tons of fun. That was many years before the internet and computer stuff distracted us too much.
My goodness, we're so old.
Yes, I think it might have been Matthias Eklund who did that, the guitar thing. I remember one time we were recording and we were just like writing some songs and things, and we didn't have a drum kit. We were just rehearsing or writing songs in someone's living room. So I remember a pack of frozen peas being brought out and put on a chair and someone just banging it. And through the Tascam, it sounded all right. It sounded you could use it to drive the beat somehow.
We used to have fun, like 4 tracks, you'd record on 3, you'd bounce them all across onto one and mix that down, and then you'd free up 3 more tracks, and then you'd do something like that, and then mix those down. And we had tons of fun just thinking about how we could record as many different things, as we could on these tracks that just then got squashed, and then the left and right balance, you kind of were stuck with where you'd put things.
I never thought about frozen peas before, but I did do a recording with a paper bag on a couch with a wooden spoon.
Love it. And people strive for that sort of technology now, the old school analog. I remember seeing an interview with Brian May recently about how they recorded some of the Queen songs, and how I think in Bohemian Rhapsody some of the backing vocals are multi-tracks all bounced down into one track because they didn't have enough space for all of the tracks that were going on. So you had to get it all balanced right and then commit to it, and then you could carry on.
One of the best books I've got, it's probably over there somewhere, is a Beatles book, but it's basically notes on all of the recording sessions that they ever did, but it talks about what they recorded on different tracks. And I think it wasn't until like Sgt. Pepper or later that they had 8-track recording. So everything up until there was recorded on 4 tracks on tape that would wear out. The more they recorded on it. And I think a Brian May one recently as well. I might have read that it was Bohemian Rhapsody or something, that they just overdubbed so much on it, they actually held the tape up to the light, and they could see it was just wearing away from constant recording on it.
Amazing. I was also just looking, I think I've got the same, or at least it's the same size TARDIS as you. It's somewhere in this room. I thought it was in this room, but I can't find it. I must have moved it somewhere, unless it's now in your room. I don't know.
Could be.
Yeah. Great. Oh, I look forward to seeing that finish. And what I look forward to the most is when you're making your new guitars, and we're seeing new videos of your new guitars, you doing your experimenting on this one to get it all right.
Definitely, yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, once I get this one there put together, which is only a couple of weeks away, it's full steam ahead on this new one.
Oh my God! I've just seen. I'm going to share with you a couple of Instagram reels I did of the guitar that I'm going to talk to you about, which I've just about to finish, and it's been over a year since I first painted it. I've got, if you don't mind me just quickly getting onto mine, because I've been talking for an hour and a half.
Go for it.
Let's go back to this. I'll just share my screen. So essentially, it's the one that you've heard me talk about many times, that for various reasons, I've got an incredibly patient client, I guess, who has put up with me. But it was this one that I put the chameleon paint on. So I lost all my photos of it, and I haven't got anything at the moment. But it's a chameleon paint that's made for cars. And I've put it on the guitar, and this is it, sort of not polished up. But what happens is, at one angle, it's a kind of golden orange, and it goes through purple and blue. I think it's really cool. But unfortunately, I've had many issues with it. So I just wanted to give a little breakdown of, first of all, I've got to say again how patient and good the client's been, but just the process of things. And there's so many things you've all said that absolutely I should have taken into account. So the very beginning of this story is I sold this guitar. Let me just find the photo of it, to someone. And I think it must have been through Reverb or eBay. So I sold it to this guy in France who is a Twitch guitarist. He makes his living out playing on Twitch, and he loves it. So then he came back to me. Well, he didn't come back to me. He bought another guitar of mine a year or so later on eBay, and it was one of my heavy relic, strange angled neck ones. And he started asking me questions about it. Just while I'm on here, this guitar, what's happened with this guitar? I previously sold it on Reverb, and this has happened to me a few times. I've sold a guitar, someone's bought it, and they've sent it back to me and said, we love the guitar, but it's not right for us. So this one, the neck was too thick. And the person buying it, this is what happens when you buy online, wasn't happy with that because they couldn't try it in person. But they said, keep the money, I've paid you for it. Could you customize my guitar instead? So they sent me their guitar, and I customized it to have their band logo on and look kind of like metal and damaged, because this is what they want to suit their music. And then every year for 4 years in a row, I made a new guitar for him where he sent me a guitar. I then did this one where he was into the Punisher, so it's got guns on it and the Punisher logo and blah blah blah. He often plays when he's playing with his belt, which has got kind of bullets all over it. Then I made him this Viking looking one which kind of glows, and then the most recent one was this one, which is meant to look a bit like zombie apocalypse type thing. But anyway, so then the guitar resold. This bloke liked it, asked me to buy another guitar, bought it on eBay. Then he said, could I change it to have a baritone neck on it? And I said, I can definitely do that, because he had a baritone conversion neck that he really liked and wanted me to put on it. So he sent me that, and then he said, actually, could you respray it so it has this chameleon color on it? I said, well, if I'm going to respray it, I might as well just make you a new body. He said, oh, in that case, could it be a strap body? And I just built a strap body, so I was like, fine, I can do that straight off. So bought in the paints he wanted. He wanted this specific paints, not a brand I've used. And what I should have said was, when he also said to me that no other luthier would do this for him, I should have said, I need to do what some of you have said before, which is the first time you're making something, when you're like Scott, when you were building it, you suddenly realize you need more space for this element, you need to access the jack. And I remember Mr. Glyn saying this from Mr. Glyn's pickups, when he builds someone a new pickup that he's not built before, he has to charge them for 4 pickups, because it takes a number of iterations to get it right. And that's what's kept happening with this guitar. So I sprayed it. I had a lot of difficulty with the spray, so I had to buy the paint twice and redo it. And the reason is, I'm used to the certain makes of paint that I use, and there's a lot of forgiveness in them. So I will prep the guitar. You've got to get it like nice and smooth. I'll put the base layers on, and then I'll put the main color on. And even when I'm using translucent colors, there's a little bit of give on how that will go on. But this chameleon paint is so thin that any tiny mark in the body just shows up, and as you move it, it's emphasized. So I realized there were some tiny marks I hadn't noticed and I wasn't happy with it, so I had to redo it all. And then he said to me, oh, can you put in these pickups, which were his Yngwie Malmsteen set that he ordered in, and can I put these tuners on and various other bits? They're all fine, they're just literally swap in and out. But did I mind also putting a piezo pickup in? And well, that needs a preamp, so I needed to widen the cavity a bit. And then he also wanted the Eric Clapton tone boost. So suddenly everything needs to be widened to fit in. So I had to widen all the cavities and everything. And just to skip ahead, in the process of doing all of this, I scratched the guitar, so I had to repaint it all again. So it's 3 repaintings. Anyway, so managed to get it all to fit. He then wanted the kill switches, which I knew about early on, so we planned where they were going. But he wanted kill switches that light up. So he'd seen them online. We bought them in. I assumed they would just fit in properly. But because of the way the Eric Clapton tone boost wired up, it meant that things aren't as you would expect for how they connect to the 5-way switch. And because of that, the kill switches connect to the 5-way switch as well. I had to work out a different way of wiring them up, which took quite a while to do. So like literally this wiring, each time I did it was at least a day of adding a new component. Then I found that the preamp interfered from the piezo with the, or vice versa, the kill switch lights interfered with the preamp. So I had to take it all apart, find a way to rewire it, and I couldn't get them all to work together. So we had to change the kill switches to just be non-light up ones. Bought them from the same company, apparently the same size, but actually they were slightly bigger. So then I had to recut the holes for it, which involved chipping the paint again. So like I should have painted it all at the end, right? After all this. Oh, and he also wanted some light. When he saw it all, he was like, that looked cool with some lights in the back. And I thought, well, I can bond those lights in the back easy off of what I've got. So I tried out these new micro LEDs. They were brilliant. I really enjoyed using them. I'll definitely use them again. But putting those all in seemed to then interfere with the preamp again. So I had to take them all out. And then he wanted, oh, while you're there, do you mind just dropping one of those 3-way switches that does the 10 pickup options? And I just used one. I thought it might work, but then I remembered the 5-way switch is different to how it normally is because of all the preamp and the Eric Clapton boost. So I couldn't put that in for him. And then once I put it all in, after repainting again, there was loads of feedback which wasn't there the first time I wired it all up. So I had to unwire it all, work out what was going on, and rewire it up. And in the process, I just couldn't get everything to interact together properly. So now it's been totally pared back. It still has the Yngwie Malmsteen in it. It still has the piezo, but we've got rid of the Eric Clapton tone boost. So all of these things are very easy to wire in independently, but none of them take into account all of the other things. And none of them take into account my less experience than I need for this kind of wiring. I'm sure there are people out there that know how to do it. But here's a warning. Yeah, when someone says no other luthier would do it, I saw it as a challenge, but I should have questioned why. And I should have said to him, because basically I've just charged him the amount that we originally agreed for the original guitar, which is one that I've made loads of times so I can sell for less. And he's very kindly paid for the extra paints as we've gone through it all. But I'm now at the stage where everything was working, but the paint was too damaged from having to change everything all. So I've taken everything out. It's being resprayed at the moment. It's going to be polished next week or week after when I go out from holiday. All the wiring is going to be put back in and then sent to him, and hopefully it will work. But it's been over a year because I've been working on it. Like I timetabled a certain amount of time for it. And then when things start going wrong, I've already got other clients that I've got to work with. And he's been very kind and said, oh, no rush, just get them done first. And as a result, I keep putting things back. I've had other things that have meant I haven't been working as much as I normally do because of outside things happening in my life. And it's just been very hard. Great that I've got a patient client, because if it'd been basically any other client, I think they would have been quite pissed off by now with everything all. But what I've decided is I'm not going to work on commissions where it's things I haven't done before without saying to someone, I'm willing to do this all, but it needs to be an experimental process and you need to pay me for development time to work out if these things work. And then if they work, we can build the guitar you want. But until we know these things work together, I'm not willing to give you a set price, which is what I do for everyone else. So it's nearly finished. So I'll be sharing photos of it soon, and hopefully it will be suitable for him for his Twitch streams. I think the colors are great, but I've noticed that one of the companies I work with who make guitar specific paints have just released an almost identical chameleon paint. And I'd feel much happier using a paint that's designed to go onto woods and things that are guitars, that as opposed to the automobile paint, which I've had a lot of difficulty with. Yeah, I would have got yelped to oblivion.
Oh, should have talked about that when we had Todd on, because he used to do car paints.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's been a learning process for me. The problem was it put me off doing commissions. And as I've mentioned before, that's meant that this year I've earned a lot less money than normal because I've been making guitars ready to sell as opposed to having the commissions in, paying part in advance, paying when it's finished. And all those guitars I've made to sell were just about ready to sell. But that whole process of laying out materials, laying out time before the end product's there has been quite problematic, I think, for a way of working, a model of working. It's going to be a great guitar. So I've learned the baritone conversion necks seem brilliant. They just literally slot in. Everything's great. I've learned that with the wiring I had for the piezo, it's not designed to be taken on and off and on and off and on and off. So I've had to buy replacement piezo saddles. I've had to take one apart and rewire it all. I've learned that the Yngwie Malmsteen pickups aren't silent like I expected them to be. They're basically essentially humbuckers in a single coil spacing. So they're like double coils stacked on top of each other. I've learned that the power output from them doesn't match with the piezo at all. They're much too strong. And that was also causing the Eric Clapton boost to totally overdrive all the time. Yeah.
Then adding in lights and LEDs and just causes more interference.
Yeah, but those kill switches that change, so they light up depending on the position your pickups are in. So depending on what pickup position is, you've got red, blue, or green, and then you've got the combinations. You've got like a purple, or you've got a sort of orangey color. They're really cool, and they work on a normal 5-way switch fine. But on other switches, it's a bit more complicated. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. They're from Tessie Switch. They were a limited edition run, and if you can get them,
I bought one. I actually bought one of the non-illuminated Tessie switches. It's a great switch, but I realized I don't like kill switches after installing it. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work the way I want it to.
You can get a kill switch circuit that works in reverse, so it's a live switch.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh.
I think the proper way to get a proper kill is the Tom Morello way, where you have two pickups, two volume knobs. Yeah. One of the volume knobs is 0, and you toggle like this. That's the best way to get the sound you're looking for, because otherwise there's a click, there's a pop. You can hear the button. Like I can hear more button than I can guitar signal.
Yeah, the toggle on the, like I played in a band for ages with a guitarist who had a Les Paul, and he just had that on his toggle. So it was just mid position, and then one position was off, basically.
Yeah, I think shorting to ground is not the way to do it.
Right. Also, I found that the kill switches I bought in from Tessie Switch are very similar to the same sort of arcade buttons you can get from an arcade button supplier, but without wires attached. But sorry, the Tessie Switch have the wires attached, and the arcade switches, I some companies are made for people that are building arcade machines or building arcade things, so they're super high quality. So I'm sure they're exactly the same, and they're much cheaper. So that's my way forward, is buying direct like that. But Buckethead has the exact same sort of switch as the Tessie switch, which is the question Mano just asked. So essentially, you press the button and it mutes the signal by shorting it out to earth. So the live gets shorted out. So when you press the button, it goes silent. But there's a really interesting system you can have where you hit a toggle switch and that mutes your whole signal. And then when you press the button, it overrides the toggle switch. So when you press it, the signal goes through. So you get like a live signal. Because I've heard Tom Morello talk about the fact that what he's doing is playing the gaps in the note, in the thing. So when he's pressing his button or doing his toggle, he's not toggling it on to the on sound, he's toggling it on to the off sound. And now he's saying that with a toggle, it must be easier because one way is on and one way, whatever. It's more complicated when it's an off than an on if you want to use it for rhythmic purposes.
It's also cleaner. It's a cleaner kill when you're using the toggle going down to a volume to 0 instead of shorting the ground, because shorting the ground makes a lot of noise, a lot, especially if you're using like a clean channel or a clean sound.
And if you do it so you just break the live wire, you often get a bit of hum. So what you're saying about doing it to the volume sounds great. I wonder if you could just set a toggle kill switch up, like a push kill switch up to a volume pot with no volume.
That's what I was thinking. Arran. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as you were talking about it. I've only used the kill switch once for the last Great Guitar Build-Off guitar, and the one that I had, it had an LED in it, but it was just for appearance, just so it looked nice. It wasn't changing anything as you pressed it. But that one, it could either be wired up as like normally open or normally closed, so that you could kind of do it both ways. And I hadn't used it before, so it took a bit of experimenting of literally just, multimeters and measuring things and changing wires. And yeah, the first few times it was wired up, so the guitar, it was on when you pressed the switch, but that was useless when there was no toggle to turn that on and off, because the guitar was basically silent all the time and was only on when you pressed it. So it took me a bit of fiddling around to get it, how it was working. But yeah, that was like, I did the same thing, researched about breaking the circuit, which then makes that hum, and then sending it to ground, which is meant to be the quieter way to do it. But even I noticed that it wasn't as quiet as I thought it should have been from seeing other people use them.
I did one some time ago, and I think I was trying to remember. I think it was on the pull, on a push-pull. But I probably went to ground because I didn't know what else to do. But I can't quite remember what I did.
That's the... when we have Eddie from Electric Lady Guitars on, he was showing me the records he keeps of all his builds. And I'm intrigued to ask him about that, because I don't really keep a record anymore. And I'm exactly the same as you, Scott. There might be something I've done before and I don't remember how I did it. So each time I want to do it again, it's like working from scratch almost, or trying to dig up a distant memory. But he seems to have everything recorded. I
have several wirings that I've done. I've worked out on computer beforehand, and I still have those diagrams, but a lot of those are like bits and pieces, how to use, how to do this, and trying to stick them together might be complicated, but yeah, I don't remember exactly what I did. But I think it was the pull on a push-pull, which is kind of a weird. I don't know. More and more, I think I never need a tone knob, and I almost don't need a volume knob. So I played with the idea of just a on-off toggle. For a personal guitar, I'd probably just direct out. But anyway.
So look, we've had quite a long session today. I wasn't sure it was going to be this long, but brilliant. Before we go, has anyone got anything they want to show and tell? And a quick stop off. Owen's just said he had to go in the chat. I think it was Owen, yeah. And he's the one that... No, it wasn't. It was Brad that really wanted the show and tells.
We've kind of done show and tells throughout.
Yeah, I guess. oh, yeah, we've got the little
Scott
thing
Danny
that goes to the back of the Geica. Scott's on silent again. I think you're only on silent when you're talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, something doesn't want me to show this or talk about it. Throwing it across the room. Yeah, it's just like one of the thumb screws on a bridge. It's just, extra.
I just wanted to mention that this week I've been listening to music again. Normally I listen to podcasts. And I think it must have been because Mr. Glyn's pickups on Instagram has shown his Doom pickup that we've talked about recently. And I was trying to look up some Doom music, and as the sort of algorithms work, it got me onto Monster Magnet, which I'm not sure is really Doom. But I'd only really heard the Power Trip album when it came out in '98. And I've been listening to some of their other albums, and there's one called Dopes to Infinity, which was their previous album, 1995, and I'm absolutely loving it. So I'm going to work my way through their 14 albums that they have over the next week or two. I'm finding working to music as opposed to working to talk radio or podcasts is really good for me at the moment, and I'm really into that. It's really the sort of sounds that I want when I play bass and guitar, I think. So if anyone's got any suggestions, if anyone's a Monster Magnet fan and has got a favourite album, let me know. Great. Well, on that note, I mentioned at the beginning what's coming up, but just so you know, if you want to join the live stream, it's not next Thursday, it's next Friday with Simon. Fantastic. Great. Links for all of us in the descriptions. Don't forget to share, etc. Thank you all. Right. Till next week. Bye everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Hasta la taco.
The Guitar Builders Collective is a group of like-minded people from all around the world at different stages of their guitar building journey. You can join us over on our forum to seek advice or share tips on guitar building processes, materials and tools, or just to share your builds. On YouTube, we have a regular podcast of guitar building chat where you can join the live stream or watch back on past episodes. Our Instagram page shares posts of members' builds and links you direct to their accounts. And for those of you on Facebook, we've got a private group that you can join, share and chat along with. The Guitar Builders Collective is a welcome and open space for all, so do pop by and say hi. It's still streaming. It's the end stream. And this time you can see that Mark's left us. Right, I'm going to try and...
Bonus features.